Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the history of fantasy world. Okay, I stuttered a bit there, but it's okay. Okay, so we added a few wastelands to the map. Um, you'll be able to tell if it's a wasteland because if I draw a nation in here, they're slightly different shaded, and you'll probably memorize these by the time we even get down there. Who knows? There's these four large deserts here. This one being the largest. And this place down here is quite fertile. Also along the rivers. There's no really coastal deserts of sorts, and no rainforests. However, it is very cold up here near the poles, and down here a little bit. Anyways, Xopla has expanded down the river quite a bit, and this other nation. Why is there? Okay, so Snuezo is going to expand inland a good bit with their new government. Well, not new government, very old government, but they're still very territorial and in need of expansion. So that's exactly what they're going to do. So this war is going to move in here a little bit, taking some land, and so will Zoplize. And they basically cut off the smaller nation here from expanding at all, which is not good for them, to say the least. They're a very small kind of buffer state between these two. But that's not going to prove very effective because now they border each other again, which completely nullifies its purpose. So now it's just kind of here. These guys are going to move up the coast, and they've acquired a lot of land here. Also, is it just me, or do I not like that? Anyways, Xopla is going to continue moving down the river, acquiring even more fertile farmland, which is making them a very powerful local power. However, with large size comes a lot of rebels. After a few more years of expansion, this new nation down here forms. They have a very interesting name, Phatriatan. That's a new one. And they're a lot more focused on moving inland than these other nations are. They really want to move inland and explore what's in here. Spoiler warning, not a lot. So they're going to start doing that with their newfound independence that Xopla is not going to really worry about because they're a very stable nation and they don't want to cause any problems. So they're going to move this way and grow extremely large in the process. They have many people moving here to explore. And they discovered this little, well, they don't know it's a peninsula, but they discovered this little peninsula over here and they stop because they're growing a bit too large. This war is also going to move down the coast here because they want to cut off Zoplize from doing any more expansion, well, any more good expansion. So they're moving down the coast to kind of cut them off a little bit. And during this, Zoplize takes a large amount of inland territory, which isn't too great, but it works. And Xopla also expands inland a bunch, since they can't really go down the river anymore, because Phatriatan kind of took that from them. Speaking of which, Phatriatan is going to move up here a little bit, but they're going to get kind of cut off by the many powers trying to move into here. Phatriatan gets that, Xopla gets that, Yaswar gets that, Zoplize gets those. It's pretty good. And this entire, I wouldn't call it a peninsula because this river doesn't really count as a major body of water, but this somewhat peninsula has been completely filled in by a bunch of nations. And these two minor powers aren't looking very powerful, so they're going to, well, mostly Snuezo, because they're the only ones that can go somewhere. They're going to move inland a bunch and try to find more water because they can't go down the river anymore. The river is basically almost been completely taken over. They take a large amount of territory and they establish a little bit of a different border with Ukraine, maybe a little bit of border conflicts, and they're also growing very large. While all of this is happening, another civil war is breaking out in the Ukraine. It's not exactly a civil war, more of like a revolution of sorts. Anyways, they're going to fight very hard for their independence. and ultimately it's going to end up in a stalemate of sorts. They're kind of pushing into here, and they start threatening the capital of Ukraine, which is not good for them. So they just settle down and they say, "Okay, we're going to give you what you want." They get all of this right here. So this new nation has been created after breaking away from Ukraine, called Restoinja. Restoinga? I don't really know. I don't make these names. I don't pronounce them either. And while all that's happening, even more countries are trying to break away from Ukraine. Specifically, these northerners up here are going to break away into their own nation, and Ukraine doesn't exactly fight it. If you haven't noticed yet, they're a very unstable nation, and this gives birth to a new country. How am I going to pronounce this? Xu Su Haye? Xu Haye. Xu Haye? Okay. Okay. And if you haven't noticed, getting large is not a good idea because rebels, a lot of rebels, and that's what's going to happen now. Mostly natives to these tribal areas are breaking away, and that's going to happen to Zulfize. They're going to lose the lower half of their country, and they're going to try to fight it, but they can't. And the same fate is going to happen to the old Yuswar, who part has been losing territory since day one. Or no, wait, gaining territory. They won their little civil war and created Lilia. I thought it was the other way around for a little bit. I'm sorry. So these two tribes, which I'm going to refer to as the Warrior tribes, because they both ended in war and broke off. Well, one of them broke off from Use War, but this is kind of the same ethnic peoples as the guys up here, except a little bit different. So they break away from Zalthize. So these two nations have been created. They fight pretty hard. You know, they kill a few government officials, and they get their independence pretty quick. And now Xapla is going to have even more problems. More specifically, the entire east bank of the river is going to break away because it's pretty difficult to cross the rivers at this time period because naval technology is barely even a thing yet. So this new nation breaks away, this kind of minty nation, and their capital is based after the second largest city of Zapla, named Thwagwa, which is good for them. Anyways, Fetriatan is going to make some more expansions into this peninsula, and since they're a very people-friendly country, they're going to be able to kind of keep it together. These are mostly colonies, and they're trying to not inhabit them too much, keeping people away from them so nobody gets ideas to claim it for themselves. So they ultimately, after a few, maybe a century of exploring and claiming, these are mostly claims actually. There's going to be a little bit of conflicting claims here. Specifically, this very large conflicting zone here between Keswar and Fetriatan. Keswar uh, recognizes this as their sovereign territory and their native people's territory. If you're wondering what their native people's territory looks like, it's like this is kind of what their natives look like in this large area here. Recently, they crossed the kind of sea bay over here, and now they inhabit this area. And not a lot of people live out here, as I've mentioned previously, which is not good for the Phatriatans. So Keswar is going to invade them and take it. They're going to take it because they can, and nobody else lives there, and most of the people are theirs. And they're going to succeed. They're really going to succeed. They're going to succeed so much that they're going to take all of this on their own, which is good for them. They're going to do what they do, which is attack, and they're going to start invading through the south of Keswar to kind of teach them a lesson. But Skialor and probably just Skialor, because they're kind of similar nations, are going to they're going to retaliate and they're going to attack back against Triatan. And that's not good for them because two is stronger than one and ultimately they're going to succeed in kicking them out of this area here, mostly native areas. And ultimately, a stalemate is going to be reached because this is a very, very small area. They could just cross through Thwagwa, but that would cause problems, so they just don't. Their capital cities are going to be here and right there. These nations are called Ohia. It's kind of a strange name. And Ashus. I just realized that these are basically the same color. Oh, yep, they are the same color. Okay, let's just do. So, there are a lot of nations on this map. While that was happening, Sunwezo made some large expansions into here. They're by far the largest nation on this map. Probably not the strongest. That probably belongs to one of the four OGs, most likely. Well, technically, these guys were the first country, but they got kicked out of their capital city. Anyways, these new nations here are going to expand outwards a little bit along the coastline here, which works out pretty good for them. We completely cut off Ukraine from making any more expansions. So Ukraine is kind of they're kind of stuck in this position. The only way they can go is war with Sinuezo, which isn't very likely because they've kind of settled themselves. They could go to war with Wilia, that's very possible. Or they could attack their former countries, but that's not a good idea because they're very self-determined. A group of explorers, mostly from these green countries, which are known for kind of exploration. You know, Phatriatan explored this entire peninsula. Xopla discovered most of the river, and Thwagwa hasn't done much. They're not really connected to that explorer blood. Anyways, a bunch of explorers are going to they're gonna run downstream. Really, they're not gonna swim. They're going to run alongside, and they're going to go, and go until they reach a dead end. They reach this little body of water here, and they're like, well, we found the other side of the world. So they decide to set up a civilization there. And this new nation is going to be called Asman, because the random name generator has spoken. And this new nation is quite powerful, well, in a powerful position. Not a lot of nations up here, probably Phatriatan, Xopla, and Flagwa know about this, and maybe some of their bordering nations, but other than that, nobody really knows about Asman. But other than that, a lot of people from these countries up here are going to move down to here, and oh wow, I didn't mean to do that. They're going to expand, hopefully to link up with the original river countries. And ultimately, they reach this very large point with their very large population that's growing very fast. And I think now is a very good point to end off the video, because we have done a lot in this episode, to say the least. Ukraine has made large expansions, but also exploded. Sinuezo has made large expansions, but it's not very fertile land in here. Xopla has collapsed. Phatriatan tried to make a big empire, but they collapsed. Uswar and Zavlize also broke into two, which is going to cause problems later. Wheelia did absolutely nothing, and a new country is formed on the other side of the quote-unquote world, but the world actually goes all the way to here, allegedly. Anyways, see you later.